what it's like to be noticed by the Inquisition in Warhammer 40,000. You wake in darkness and the air smells wrong. Incense mixed with something older, something that makes your throat tighten. Your hands are bound, not with rope, but with silk cords that feel expensive against your skin. Around you, 13 robed figures stand in perfect silence, their faces hidden behind brass masks shaped like weeping stars. Candles flicker in a pattern you don't understand but somehow recognize, their light casting shadows that move independently of their sources. This is not a dream. This is not a kidnapping. This is an invitation. And the worst part? Deep in the hollow space beneath your ribs, in that secret place where you keep your hungers and disappointments, you want to say yes. Because outside this hidden shrine, your life was nothing. Here, surrounded by strangers who whisper your name like a prayer, you might finally become something more. Chapter 1. The First Whisper. The Imperial citizen who joins a cult doesn't usually start as a heretic. They start as someone tired, someone forgotten, someone whose prayers to the God Emperor echo back from gilded cathedral ceilings without answer. In the Hive cities of the Imperium, where 300 billion souls press against each other in vertical labyrinths of rust and stone, it's easy to feel invisible. You work your shift in the Prometheum refineries or the protein reclamation vats. You live in a hab-block apartment measuring 2 meters by 3 meters, sharing a single water ration spigot with 47 other families. You attend your mandatory prayer sessions every 7th day, reciting the litany of devotion until the words become meaningless sounds. And slowly, year by year, you realize that the Imperium doesn't see you. You are a number in a production quota, a calorie expenditure in a logistics calculation, replaceable, forgettable, nothing. The first contact usually comes through someone you already know, a co-worker who seems slightly more content than they should be, a neighbor who always has an extra ration pack when yours runs short, a distant cousin who speaks with quiet certainty about purposes and plans. They don't approach you directly at first. Instead, they watch. The architects of corruption are patient, and they've learned to identify the vulnerable with practiced eyes. They look for specific markers, the worker who flinches when the overseers pass, suggesting abuse or desperation. The parent who stares too long at the malnourished child, calculating impossible choices. The believer who prays with decreasing conviction, their faith crumbling under the weight of unanswered suffering. These are the fault lines in the Imperial edifice, the places where something else might slip inside. When the approach finally comes, it's never obvious. Your co-worker, the one you've shared silent shifts with for 3 years, leans close during the meal break. The refinery floor shakes with distant machinery, providing acoustic cover. They ask a simple question. Do you ever feel like there should be more? Not a statement of heresy, not an open rebellion. Just a question that acknowledges the hollow ache you've carried so long you've forgotten its weight. You hesitate. The Lectitio Divinitatus teaches that suffering is holy, that your hardship serves the Emperor's grand design. But your child coughed blood last week, and the Medici facility required 17 different forms filed in triplicate for treatment, and by the time you'd navigated the bureaucracy, the infection had spread to both lungs. So instead of reporting this dangerous question, you nod. Just once. Just barely. It's enough. The invitations that follow are wrapped in mundane justification. A gathering of workers discussing collective concerns about safety violations. A neighborhood association addressing water quality issues. A prayer group meeting outside official channels because the Ecclesiarchy Cathedral is 18 levels away and the lifts haven't worked in 6 months. These gatherings start innocent enough. 10 or 12 people in someone's cramped apartment, speaking in low voices about problems everyone acknowledges but no one can solve. The administratum doesn't respond to complaints. The Arbeits only enforce. They don't protect. The local priest delivers sermons about endurance but offers no practical aid. So you keep attending these meetings, because at least here, someone listens. At least here, your suffering is acknowledged rather than dismissed as the Emperor's inscrutable will. The transition from legitimate grievance to something darker happens so gradually you don't notice the border crossing. Meetings shift from discussing problems to discussing solutions, but solutions that fall outside official channels. Someone suggests pooling resources to bypass the standard ration distribution, creating a private network that ensures everyone's children eat. Someone else mentions a contact in the Underhive who can provide real medicine, not the expired supplements the Medici facility dispenses. A third person speaks carefully about old traditions, practices that predate the Imperium's arrival on this world, methods that might bring genuine comfort instead of empty ritual. Nothing explicitly heretical is said. The word chaos is never mentioned. The ruinous powers remain unnamed, but the seeds are planted in fertile ground, the soil of desperation, watered with legitimate grievance, warmed by the basic human need to matter. The promises at this stage are modest and often kept. You attend a meeting and leave with an extra week's rations, protein bars that actually taste like something, not the standard NutriPaste. Your child's cough improves after a draft provided by someone's cousin in the Medici supply chain. You receive advance warning about an inspection that would have found the unlicensed shrine in your apartment, the small altar to the emperor you maintain because the local cathedral is functionally inaccessible, saving you from a fine you couldn't afford. These small mercies bind more effectively than chains. The cult, still unnamed and unrecognized as such, provides what the Imperium promised, but never delivered tangible improvement in your daily existence. Community, recognition, hope. The psychological hook deepens through validation. In the Imperium, your suffering is either ignored or reframed as virtue. Pain is holy. Hardship proves devotion. Your misery serves the greater good in ways you're too simple to understand. But in these gatherings, the rhetoric shifts. Your pain is acknowledged as real and unjust. Your anger is validated rather than condemned. The people who've failed you, the corrupt overseers, the indifferent bureaucrats, the absent authorities, are named and criticized. This feels revolutionary because it is. The Imperium functions through the absolute suppression of complaint. To question is to invite investigation. To criticize is to risk punishment. But here, in these hidden meetings, you can speak the truths you've swallowed for years. The relief is intoxicating. By the time someone mentions the meetings moving to a more secure location, you don't question it. By the time the gatherings shift from the 3rd-week cycle to every 9 days, a number that doesn't align with Imperial timekeeping, you barely notice. By the time someone suggests a small ceremony to formalize your commitment to the group, to seal your bonds with something more permanent than words, you're ready. Because these people saved your child's life. Because they've given you food and medicine and hope. Because for the first time in your 43 years of existence, you feel seen. So when they ask you to attend a special gathering at an address in the Underhive, in a district not marked on official maps, you say yes. You take the lift down past the residential levels, past the industrial sectors, into the bowels of the hive, where the architecture becomes strange and the air tastes like metal and old fear. You follow the symbols they taught you, marks chalked on corridor walls that look like maintenance codes but aren't, and you arrive at a door that opens before you knock, revealing 13 figures in brass masks and candles that cast impossible shadows, and the moment your life crosses a line you didn't even see. Chapter 2. The Binding Ceremony. The initiation doesn't involve blood, not at first. That's a misconception about chaos cults, one perpetuated by inquisitorial propaganda and lurid chapbook stories. The truly effective cults understand that horror repels as often as it attracts. The theatrical brutality comes later, after you're committed, after you've invested too much to turn back. The early rituals are designed to feel meaningful rather than frightening, sacred rather than profane. They give you exactly what you've been missing: significance, belonging, and the sensation of participating in something greater than your small, crushed life. You stand in the hidden shrine, a chamber carved from the Hive's foundation stone, predating the Imperium's occupation of this world by unknown centuries. The walls are covered in symbols that your rational mind insists are meaningless patterns, but something deeper recognizes them the way you might recognize a childhood lullaby in a language you never consciously learned. The 13 masked figures arrange themselves in a circle, and you stand at the center. One of them speaks, their voice distorted by the brass mask into something that sounds like multiple tones layered imperfectly. They explain that you have been watched, that your suffering was noted, that your potential was recognized by powers that actually care about individual worth. Unlike the vast grinding machine of the Imperium that views you as expendable biomass, the rhetoric is carefully constructed. They don't denounce the Emperor, not directly. Instead, they speak of the corrupted institutions that have betrayed his vision. They reference Apocrypha and obscure Imperial texts, suggesting that the current ecclesiarchy has strayed from the Emperor's true teachings. They frame themselves not as heretics, but as preservers of ancient wisdom that the Imperium has forgotten. This narrative is crucial because you're not ready to consider yourself a traitor. You still think of yourself as loyal, or at least not disloyal. This gathering is positioned as a return to authenticity, a rebellion against corruption rather than against the Imperium itself. The cognitive dissonance is resolved through careful rhetorical framing. You're not betraying the Emperor, you're betraying the unworthy servants who failed him. The first oath is simple. You're asked to swear loyalty to the gathered community, to promise that you'll protect the group's secrets as they protect yours. This seems reasonable. After all, these people have helped you, and the authorities wouldn't understand the nuance of your situation. If the Arbites investigated these meetings, they'd make assumptions, apply regulations without considering context. So you speak the words they provide, repeating the oath in high Gothic phrases you don't fully understand. The language barrier is intentional. The foreign syllables feel sacred, ancient, important. You don't realize that 3 of the words you've just spoken are names, or that names have power when spoken in ritual contexts, or that you've just offered greeting to entities that exist in realms beyond standard reality. The symbol comes next. One of the masked figures approaches with a small clay tablet impressed with a sigil. It looks almost like the Imperial Aquila if you squint, but the eagle's wings curve differently, and there's an additional element in the center, something that might be a star or an eye or a flower, depending on how the candlelight hits it. You're told this symbol represents the group, your new family, the community that will shelter you when the uncaring universe will not. You're asked to memorize it, to mark it in private places as a sign of your commitment. They provide a small pendant bearing the symbol, strung on a leather cord. It's worn beneath your clothing, hidden from casual observation. This is your first secret, the first thing you actively conceal from the Imperium's authorities. The weight of the hidden pendant against your chest is surprisingly comforting. You have a secret now. You have something that's yours alone. The shared secret creates instantaneous intimacy. After the oath and the symbol, the masked figures remove their brass faces. You recognize several of them. A shift supervisor from your refinery, a clerk from the administratum office, where you submit production reports, a preacher from the local chapel, where you attend mandatory services. The shock of recognition is intentional. These aren't underhive criminals or obvious deviants. These are people embedded in legitimate Imperial society, people with positions and authority. Their involvement simultaneously validates your choice and deepens your complicity. If a sanctioned preacher of the ecclesiarchy is part of this group, perhaps it really is legitimate. Or perhaps you're all guilty together, which creates a perverse form of security. They can't report you without condemning themselves. The ceremony concludes with communion, but not the standard ecclesiarchy ritual. Instead, you're offered a cup containing liquid that tastes like wine but isn't, something sweeter, something that makes your tongue slightly numb and your thoughts slightly loose. Everyone drinks from the same vessel, a deliberate act of shared consumption that breaks Imperium protocols about hygiene and social hierarchy. The shift supervisor drinks, then the clerk, then you, then the preacher. The equalization is powerful. In the Imperium, hierarchy is absolute and maintained through countless small rituals of deference. Here, you all drink as equals. The substance in the cup is probably mildly psychoactive, nothing dramatically consciousness-altering, but enough to make the candlelight seem warmer, and the gathered faces seem more beautiful, and the weight of your previous loneliness seems suddenly lifted. After the ceremony, there's a meal, real food, not ration paste or Nutribars, but bread baked with actual grain and vegetables that still have color and texture. The cost of such food would consume your monthly wages twice over, yet here it's shared freely. You eat together, the 15 of you, and conversation flows with surprising ease. People share their stories. The clerk describes losing 3 children to a contaminated water supply, while the administratum spent 16 months processing their complaint. The preacher speaks about entering the ecclesiarchy with genuine faith, only to discover it's a political machine that uses the emperor's name to justify the suffering of billions. The shift supervisor quietly mentions a daughter who showed psychic potential and was taken by the black ships, as is proper and necessary, but who sent one letter from the Scholastica Psychana describing conditions that amounted to torture before the letters stopped entirely. These stories could be propaganda, carefully constructed narratives designed to justify heresy, but they could also be true. Probably, they're both. The Imperium does grind billions of lives into paste. Children do die from preventable problems, while bureaucracy strangles response. The black ships do take psychers, and what happens to them is largely obscured from public knowledge, and some of those children certainly suffer. The cult doesn't need to invent grievances. They merely need to collect real ones, arrange them carefully, and present them without the Imperium's justifying narrative about necessity and service. The effect is devastating. You sit among these people, and you realize you're not crazy or weak for struggling. The system is genuinely broken, and these people are trying to fix it through the only means available to them. Before you leave, you're given practical information. The group meets every 9 days, rotating between 7 different locations to avoid pattern detection. You'll receive notice of the next gathering through coded messages, a chalk mark near your hab block entrance, or a particular phrase embedded in casual conversation. You're also given a task, a small one. Keep watch for others who might be receptive, not to recruit them yourself, but to mention their names to your contact. The shift to suffering neighbor who seems isolated, or co-worker who's been disciplined unjustly, or believer who's begun questioning. This task makes you an active participant rather than a passive recipient. You're no longer just someone being helped. You're a member with responsibilities, someone trusted with the group's expansion and security. You return to the surface levels in the early morning hours, emerging from the underhive into the familiar corridors of your residential district. The pendant hangs beneath your work clothes, a small weight against your sternum. You touch it periodically throughout the day, a tactile reminder that you have something secret, something yours. Your co-workers don't notice any change, but you feel fundamentally altered. The shift supervisor, who's usually tyrannical, gives you a barely perceptible nod when you clock in. You know now that he's one of the masked figures, and this shared knowledge creates a bubble of protection around you. The work is still brutal. The refinery still fills your lungs with chemical particulates, but you're no longer alone in it. You have community now. You have purpose. You have a secret that makes you special. What you don't have, not yet, is the full picture. You don't know that the sigil you've memorized is a modified mark of Tzeentch, the chaos god of change and scheming, adapted just enough to avoid immediate recognition. You don't know that the oath you swore in High Gothic included phrasings that, in certain metaphysical frameworks, constitute a binding contract with entities that exist beyond real space. You don't know that the substance you drank contained trace amounts of psychoactive compounds derived from warp-touched materials, beginning a slow alteration in your neurochemistry that will make you increasingly receptive to psychic influence. You don't know that of the 17 people initiated into this particular cult cell over the past 3 years, 5 have already disappeared, taken not by the Inquisition, but by the cult itself, used in rituals you haven't been introduced to yet. You don't know that your name has now been recorded in a ledger, written in ink that shifts colors when viewed from different angles, marking you as an asset in a war you don't understand. But you will learn. Step by step, oath by oath, secret by secret, you will learn exactly what you've joined and exactly what it will cost. But by then, it will be far too late to leave. Chapter 3. The Architecture of Devotion. Life in the cult develops its own rhythm, distinct from the Imperial timekeeping that governs your official existence. You still report to your shift at the refinery every day. You still attend mandatory prayer services every 7th day. You still submit your production quotas and ration requests and loyalty attestations according to the prescribed schedules. But layered beneath this visible routine is a second calendar, a hidden architecture of devotion that gradually becomes more important than your official duties. The cult meets every 9 days, which creates a cycle that slowly drifts out of alignment with Imperial weeks. This misalignment is intentional. It disrupts your perception of normal time, creating a separate temporal framework that belongs to the group rather than the Imperium. Your role within the cult is assigned based on assessment you weren't aware was happening. During the first 3 gatherings you attend, you're simply told to observe, to learn, to absorb the community's rhythms. But the masked figures who lead the ceremonies are watching you carefully, evaluating your skills and psychological profile. Are you educated or illiterate? Do you have access to Imperial databases through your work? Do you have family who might notice extended absences? Are you naturally submissive, or do you show leadership potential? Can you keep secrets under pressure? Do you have technical skills, social connections, financial resources? Every cult needs a variety of roles filled, and new initiates are sorted into positions that maximize their utility to the organization. You're designated a gatherer, which initially sounds more important than it is. Your job is resource acquisition, specifically collecting the materials and funds that keep the cult operational. This happens through a variety of means, some more legal than others. You're given a list of items needed for upcoming ceremonies: candles made from specific types of tallow, incense blended from particular herbs, fabric in certain colors, metal implements matching exact specifications. Some of these items you can purchase through normal channels, using your wages or small amounts of thrones provided by the cult's common fund. Others require more creativity. You learn to skim supplies from your refinery worksite, small amounts, nothing that triggers inventory alerts, but consistently over time. 3 bolts here, a length of copper wire there, a container of industrial lubricant that can be repurposed. The hierarchy within the cult is deliberately obscured. You know the masked figures who lead ceremonies occupy positions of authority, but you don't know how many levels exist above them, or who makes ultimate decisions. This compartmentalization serves multiple purposes. It prevents any single member from possessing enough information to compromise the entire organization if captured and interrogated. It creates mystique and reinforces the sense that you're part of something vast and powerful, and it allows the cult's true leadership to remain completely hidden, insulated from risk by layers of disposable intermediaries. You interact primarily with your cell, the 15 members who were present at your initiation. Above them is someone called the Shepherd, who you've never met, but who allegedly coordinates activities across multiple cells. Above the Shepherd, there are other titles mentioned in hushed tones: Wardens, Prophets, the Ascended. Whether these positions are real or theatrical invention, you cannot determine. Tasks assigned to you increase in scope and moral ambiguity. After 2 months, you're asked to help distribute aid to struggling families in your hab block. Food packages, medical supplies, small amounts of currency. This seems purely charitable until you realize each package includes a subtle marker, the same symbol you wear on your hidden pendant, stamped on the wrapping or woven into the fabric. Recipients who notice the symbol and inquire about it are flagged as potential recruits. You're creating a trail of obligation and curiosity, identifying the desperate and the observant. The people you help are genuinely helped, their children genuinely fed and healed. But you're also marking them, drawing them into a web of debt and connection that may eventually consume them as it's consuming you. Funding for the cult's operations comes from sources you're not initially privy to, but fragments of information accumulate over time. Some members hold positions that provide access to Imperial funds. The administratum clerk can redirect small percentages from various accounts, amounts insignificant enough to escape audit but substantial in aggregate. Others run front businesses that generate legitimate income while serving cult purposes. There's a Medicaid supply company that sells real pharmaceutical products, but also distributes the cult's psychoactive compounds through trusted channels. There's a reclamation facility that processes industrial waste, but also disposes of things that shouldn't be found, objects used in rituals, evidence of ceremonies, occasionally bodies. You don't ask about the bodies. You've learned that some questions create obligations you're not ready for. The day-to-day reality of cult membership is surprisingly mundane, punctuated by moments of intense strangeness. Most of your time is spent on practical matters, gathering supplies, distributing aid, attending meetings that discuss logistics rather than theology. You help maintain the hidden shrines, which means cleaning, repairing water damage, replacing burned-out candles. You participate in security watches, standing guard during ceremonies to ensure no one stumbles upon gatherings accidentally. You memorize recognition codes and emergency protocols, specific phrases that signal danger, predetermined dispersal routes if a meeting is compromised. This is the boring architecture that supports any clandestine organization, and it feels less like serving dark gods and more like being part of an inefficient committee with excessive secrecy protocols. But then there are the ceremonies. Every 9 days, you descend to one of the hidden shrines, and the mundane drops away. The rituals have become more elaborate since your initiation. There are chants now, long passages in a language that isn't High Gothic or any dialect you recognize. The sounds feel physically textured, like they're vibrating in your bones rather than simply entering your ears. The candle arrangements have become more complex, forming geometric patterns that your eyes struggle to track. You look at the configuration and suddenly lose count. Certain there were 7 flames, but now seeing 9, or perhaps 11. The masked figures perform movements that might be dance or might be something else. Gestures that create afterimages in the air, traceries of color that shouldn't exist in the dim candlelight. During one ceremony held on the 47th day after your initiation, something changes. The ritual proceeds normally, chanting, the sharing of the sweet wine, the recitation of oaths. But when the lead figure raises their hands, the candle flames all lean in the same direction despite no wind moving through the sealed chamber. And in that moment of synchronized flame, you see something. A flicker at the edge of perception. A presence that isn't physically there, but is somehow more real than the stone walls. It might be a trick of light and exhausted perception. It might be mild hallucinogens in the wine. Or it might be exactly what the cult has been promising. A genuine connection to powers beyond the Imperium's sanctioned reality. You don't tell anyone what you saw, but when you make eye contact with the other initiates afterward, you recognize the same shaken wonder in their faces. You all saw something. You all felt something, and it was real. The cult provides structure in other ways too. Disputes between members are adjudicated by senior figures rather than Imperial authorities. When your neighbor, a fellow cultist, accuses you of taking his supply requisition, a masked arbiter hears both sides and makes a ruling. It's faster than Imperial justice and feels fairer, probably because you're allowed to actually speak in your own defense rather than navigating bureaucratic procedures. The cult also provides practical education. You learn to read beyond basic functional literacy, studying texts that circulate within the group. Some are genuinely ancient philosophical works. Others are coded manuals describing ritual practices. One is an annotated Imperial infrastructure guide showing maintenance tunnels and forgotten sections of the Hive, knowledge that could be used for cult purposes, but is also just genuinely useful for navigating a city whose official maps are centuries out of date. Social bonds deepen through shared transgression. You know secrets about your fellow cultists that would destroy them if revealed. The preacher who leads prayers at the chapel also leads ceremonies invoking powers that would earn him execution. The shift supervisor who enforces production quotas skims materials for cult purposes. The medici worker who treats injuries also produces forbidden compounds. This mutual knowledge creates perverse trust. You cannot betray them without destroying yourself. But it feels like more than mutually assured destruction. You've shared strange experiences together, seen things together that exist outside normal frames of reference. You've helped each other survive in a system designed to crush you. The bonds feel genuine, and perhaps they are. Perhaps people can genuinely care for each other, even within structures of manipulation and corruption. Perhaps love and exploitation aren't mutually exclusive. By the time you've been a member for 6 months, the cult has become your primary community. Your old friends from the Hab block, the ones who aren't involved, seem distant now. You have less in common with them. They complain about problems you're actively working to solve through cult networks. They speak about the Emperor with rote devotion that sounds hollow compared to the intense experiences you're having in hidden shrines. They seem asleep, going through motions, while you've woken up to a larger reality. This sense of superiority is carefully cultivated by the cult's teachings. You are the chosen, the enlightened, the ones who see clearly. Everyone else is trapped in the Imperium's lies, suffering uselessly when there are other paths, other powers, other possibilities. You don't notice how thoroughly your value system has shifted. 6 months ago, you would have been horrified at the idea of stealing from your workplace, or lying to Arbeit's investigators, or participating in unsanctioned religious ceremonies. Now these things seem not just acceptable, but virtuous. You're fighting a corrupt system. You're accessing ancient wisdom. You're helping people the Imperium has abandoned. The cognitive framework has inverted. What the Imperium calls loyalty is actually collaboration with an unjust machine, while what it calls heresy is actually staying true to deeper principles. This inversion was carefully engineered through hundreds of small steps, each individually justifiable, but in aggregate resulting in a complete transformation of your moral foundations. You are no longer the person who entered that first hidden shrine, and the person you've become doesn't even remember making the choice to change. Chapter 4. The Architecture of Control. The cult doesn't rule through fear alone, though fear is certainly present. It rules through a sophisticated mixture of psychological techniques that would impress an inquisitorial interrogator if they weren't used for heretical purposes. The control operates on multiple levels simultaneously, creating a matrix of influence so comprehensive that by the time you recognize it, escape seems impossible. And the cruelest part is that much of it genuinely feels like love. The love bombing begins immediately after initiation and never fully stops. You are constantly told how special you are, how your suffering was meaningful, how you possess qualities that others lack. The masked figures who lead ceremonies single you out for praise, your dedication, your growing understanding, your spiritual potential. After gatherings, senior members approach you privately to share how impressed they are with your progress, how rare it is to find someone who grasps the deeper truth so quickly. This attention is intoxicating because you've spent your entire life being invisible. The Imperium never noticed you except to extract labor and compliance. But here, you matter. You're seen, valued, celebrated. The positive reinforcement is carefully calibrated. Praise comes in irregular intervals, which psychological research, even in the 41st millennium, shows creates stronger behavioral conditioning than consistent reward. Sometimes you receive elaborate recognition for small contributions. Other times, significant efforts pass without comment. This unpredictability keeps you striving, always working harder to earn the next moment of validation. You begin to crave the approval of the masked figures the way you once craved food or warmth. Their attention becomes a need, and meeting that need requires ever deeper involvement in cult activities. But beneath the love is the terror. You learn about consequences through stories rather than direct threats. A senior member casually mentions someone who lost faith and left the group, only to suffer a series of catastrophic misfortunes, job loss, family illness, eventually a fatal accident involving industrial machinery. The story is presented as tragedy rather than punishment, but the implication is clear. The powers the cult serves protect the faithful and withdraw protection from apostates. Whether the story is true or invented, you cannot verify, but you remember it. You remember all the stories about those who left or betrayed the group. They all end badly. The cult also controls through information isolation. You're instructed to limit contact with non-members except as necessary for cover and recruitment purposes. This is framed as protecting yourself from those who wouldn't understand, who might report you to authorities out of ignorance. But it functionally isolates you from any outside perspectives that might challenge the cult's narrative. Your closest relationships are now all with fellow members, creating an echo chamber where the group's beliefs are constantly reinforced and never meaningfully questioned. When doubt surfaces, you have no one to discuss it with except people invested in suppressing that doubt. The doctrine of chosenness is perhaps the most powerful psychological hook. You are repeatedly told that you were selected, that the powers beyond the veil recognize something in you specifically. Your prior suffering wasn't random or unjust. It was a test, a refining fire that burned away weakness and prepared you for greater purpose. This narrative transforms your pain from meaningless trauma into meaningful trial. It gives your suffering purpose, and humans will tolerate almost anything if they can believe it means something. The flip side is equally powerful. If you were chosen, then leaving would mean you failed the test. It would mean your suffering was pointless after all. This creates enormous psychological pressure to continue, to justify your past pain by accepting your present circumstances. The gradual escalation of commitment is engineered with precision. You're never asked to do anything dramatically beyond your previous actions. Each new request is only slightly more extreme than what you've already accepted. You attended a meeting, then you swore an oath, then you wore a hidden symbol, then you gathered supplies, then you distributed marked packages, then you lied to an arbiter about another member's whereabouts. Each step seems like a small extension of prior commitment, but in aggregate, you've traveled from curious outsider to active criminal participant in a heretical organization. This is the boiling frog methodology. Raise the temperature 1 degree at a time, and the frog never jumps out. By the time the water boils, it's too late. Confession serves as both release and trap. The cult encourages members to share their doubts, fears, and sins during certain ceremonies. This is presented as spiritual cleansing, a way to unburden yourself. And it does provide genuine psychological relief. Speaking your secrets aloud to accepting listeners reduces emotional pressure, but it also arms the cult with information about your vulnerabilities, your fears, your potential breaking points. The preacher who kindly listens to your confession about stealing extra rations for your family now knows exactly how to pressure you if you become unreliable. The compassionate confidant is also the jailer memorizing which bars are weakest. The sleep deprivation is never explicitly acknowledged, but is systematically engineered. Ceremonies are scheduled at odd hours, the third hour after midnight, the last hour before dawn. You're encouraged to spend additional time in meditation and study, reading the texts provided by senior members. You still work your regular refinery shifts. The combination means you're averaging perhaps 4 hours of sleep per night, sometimes less. Exhaustion degrades cognitive function, making you more susceptible to suggestion and less capable of critical analysis. You're too tired to question, too tired to plan, too tired to do anything except follow instructions. And when you mention feeling exhausted, you're told it's a sign of spiritual awakening, your consciousness expanding beyond the limitations of flesh. The suffering is reframed as progress. There are also substances administered more frequently now. The sweet wine at ceremonies definitely contains psychoactive compounds. You've developed enough tolerance to recognize the effects. Mild euphoria, increased suggestibility, and occasional perceptual distortions. But there are also special sacraments for members who show particular promise. You've graduated to these after 8 months of participation. a paste applied to your tongue that makes sounds visible and colors audible for several hours. An incense burned during private meditation that produces vivid visions, sometimes beautiful, sometimes horrifying, always significant feeling. These experiences are interpreted by senior members who guide you toward approved meanings, ensuring your visions reinforce cult teachings rather than generating independent insight. The manufactured dependency extends to material needs. You've come to rely on cult resources for things the Imperium should provide but doesn't. Your child's medicine comes from cult sources now. The official Medici facility is still 14 months behind on processing requests. Extra food, better quality than rations, is provided regularly. When your Hab block landlord tried to evict you for late payment, a senior cult member intervened. You never learned how, but the eviction notice was withdrawn. The cult has woven itself into your survival network so thoroughly that leaving would mean losing access to resources your family depends on. How can you risk your child's health by abandoning the only source of reliable medicine? How can you be so selfish? The cognitive dissonance becomes almost unbearable at times. Part of you recognizes the manipulation, sees the control mechanisms clearly. But another part, the larger part now, insists that the cult saved you, that whatever their methods, their purposes, are genuine and good. You've seen unexplainable things during ceremonies. You've felt presences that shouldn't exist according to Imperial doctrine. You've witnessed what appears to be genuine supernatural intervention, a member's terminal illness suddenly reversing, a string of improbable coincidences that favored cult objectives, moments when the veil between reality and something else seemed to thin. These experiences can't be dismissed as theater or drugs. Something real is happening. And if the supernatural elements are real, doesn't that validate everything else? The cult also manages your relationship with guilt through sophisticated reframing. When you feel bad about lying, stealing, or betraying Imperial law, you're taught to recognize that guilt as programming. The Imperium installed those feelings to keep you compliant and powerless. True morality, you're told, exists beyond the Imperium's rules. True virtue is serving the powers that actually care about individual humans, not a dead corpse on a distant throne surrounded by machines. This teaching doesn't eliminate guilt, but it redirects it. You feel guilty about feeling guilty, which creates a strange psychological loop that somehow makes it easier to continue transgressing. The moral confusion itself becomes a form of control. Some members break under the pressure and attempt to leave. You've seen it happen twice now. A man named Corvus, who'd been in the cult for 3 years, announced during a gathering that he'd made a mistake and needed to return to normal Imperial life. He was not threatened. He was not restrained. Instead, the cult's shepherd spoke with him privately for 2 hours. After that conversation, Corvus recanted his decision and remained. You never learned what was said, but Corvus seemed different afterward, more hollow, more frightened. The second case involved a woman named Elia, who simply stopped attending gatherings. Her absence was noted, but not immediately acted upon. 3 weeks later, you heard she'd been arrested by Arbites for entirely unrelated crimes: fraud, theft, possession of illegal substances. The charges were legitimate, evidence was solid. But the timing was curious, and you wondered, in the privacy of your thoughts you don't share with anyone, whether the cult had anonymously reported her, carefully providing evidence that would ensure conviction without revealing their own existence. The message was clear without being spoken. You can try to leave, but the cult has information about your crimes. They know you've stolen from your workplace, lied to authorities, participated in illegal gatherings, possessed forbidden materials. If you become a problem, that information might find its way to the Arbites, or the Ecclesiarchy, or the Inquisition. And even if the cult goes down, you'll go down with them. You've committed real crimes. You've genuinely broken Imperial law. The evidence of your guilt exists independently of whether the cult chooses to reveal it. This is the perfect trap. You're imprisoned by your own actions, and the cult simply controls which of those actions become visible to authorities. By your 1-year anniversary in the cult, you've changed in ways that would horrify your past self. You've participated in rituals that dance around the edges of what could be called demon summoning, though that term is never used. You've lied with fluent ease to Arbeit's investigators asking about disturbances in your district. You've helped recruit 3 new members, identifying vulnerable individuals and guiding them through the same manipulation process that ensnared you. You've stolen goods worth approximately 15,000 thrones from your workplace. You've consumed substances that have altered your neurochemistry and possibly your metaphysical essence. You've witnessed things that violated your understanding of reality and incorporated them into a new, cult-approved cosmology. And you are, despite everything, happier than you were before. That's the cruelest part. The cult provides community, purpose, transcendence, and practical support. Your life is materially better than it was. Your child is healthier. You have friends, real friends who know you deeply and still accept you. You've experienced genuine wonder, felt connected to something vast and powerful. Yes, you're being manipulated. Yes, you've lost your freedom. Yes, you're trapped in a web of control you can barely perceive. But you're a trapped bird in a cage that's larger and more beautiful than the cage you inhabited before. Is it really wrong to prefer this cage? Is it really weakness to accept these chains? The cult has taught you that freedom itself is an illusion, that everyone serves something, and you might as well serve a power that actually rewards devotion. You almost believe it. Most days, you do believe it. And on the days you don't, you remember Corvus's hollow eyes and Elia's arrest, and you keep your doubts buried deep, where even you can barely find them. Chapter 5: The Legitimate Face. The cult doesn't exist in a hidden underground completely separate from Imperial society. That's another misconception, one that comforts the Imperium's authorities because it suggests cults are easily identifiable, obviously separate from normal life. The truth is far more insidious. The most successful cults embed themselves into the official structures of Imperial society, operating simultaneously as legitimate enterprises and heretical organizations. You come to understand this dual existence intimately because you're living it, presenting one face to the world while concealing another. The front businesses are sophisticated and often genuinely profitable. The Medici supply company that provides your child's medicine is a real corporation, with Imperial licensing, tax payments, and an administratum oversight. It employs 237 people, most of whom have no idea the company's ownership includes cult leadership. The products it sells are legitimately sourced and properly manufactured, but layered within the legitimate operations are cult functions. The warehouse stores ritual materials alongside pharmaceutical supplies. The distribution network moves both legal medicines and illegal psychoactive compounds. The financial records are real, but structured to hide certain cash flows. Money that enters as payment for legitimate services, but exits through carefully constructed channels that fund cult operations. You're recruited into maintaining these dual operations through your role as gatherer. You take a second job, part-time, working in the Medici supply warehouse. The position was arranged by a cult member in management. The work is standard inventory control, receiving shipments, checking manifests, organizing stock. But you're also trained to recognize special containers marked with subtle sigils. These shipments don't go into the main inventory system. Instead, they're diverted to a separate storage area and recorded in an off-book ledger. You're told they contain experimental treatments not yet approved by Imperial Medici authorities, but potentially life-saving for desperate patients. This framing makes the deception seem humanitarian. You're not smuggling, you're compassionately distributing advanced medicine that bureaucracy hasn't caught up to yet. The reality is more complex. Some of those special containers do contain legitimate experimental treatments, which the cult provides to members facing serious illnesses. This builds loyalty and demonstrates the cult's power to deliver results the Imperium cannot. But other containers hold the psychoactive substances used in ceremonies, compounds synthesized from warp-touched materials by unsanctioned tech priests serving gods they shouldn't. Still others contain objects you're instructed not to examine, sealed boxes that feel wrong to touch, that make your fingers tingle and your ears ring. You follow instructions, receive, record, store, don't ask questions. The strategy is familiar. Gradual escalation. Each shipment is only slightly stranger than the last. By the time you're handling containers that whisper in a language you don't speak, you've already normalized so much that this seems like just one more small step. The infiltration of Imperial institutions is deeper than you initially realized. After 15 months in the cult, you're invited to a special gathering restricted to members who hold positions in official organizations. You're surprised by the attendance. 43 people, representing a cross-section of Imperial bureaucracy. There's a mid-level administrator from the Departamento Munitorum Logistics Division, a junior interrogator from the local Arbeits precinct, a tech priest who maintains the Hive's power distribution systems, a scribe from the Ecclesiarchy archives, a lieutenant from the Planetary Defense Force, and a clerk from the Governor's Taxation Office. Each of them wears the hidden pendant. Each has sworn the oaths. Each serves two masters, and increasingly, the hidden master commands greater loyalty than the official one. The value of these embedded members becomes clear when an Arbeits investigation begins into illegal substance distribution in your district. The cult learns about the investigation 6 weeks before it would have reached operational phase, because the junior interrogator is one of them. This early warning allows complete restructuring of distribution networks, disposal of evidence, and alteration of records. By the time the Arbeits execute their raids, they find nothing incriminating. The investigation collapses due to lack of evidence, and the interrogator earns commendation for thorough preliminary work that prevented waste of Arbeits resources on a false lead. The system doesn't just fail to catch the cult, it rewards cult members for sabotaging efforts to catch them. The blackmail operates subtly at first. You don't realize it's happening until you're already implicated. A senior cult member approaches you with a request. Use your warehouse access to verify whether a specific Arbeits evidence locker contains certain seized materials. This would require accessing a restricted database using credentials you don't possess. But you're introduced to another cult member who works in the Arbeits administrative section, who provides temporary access codes. You perform the search, find the information, report back. Simple. Except now, you've committed a crime that's clearly documented in access logs. If investigated, the evidence would show you illegally accessed Arbeits systems. The cult didn't force you. They simply created a situation where helping them was easy and consequences seemed distant. This pattern repeats across the membership. The tech priest uses his position to divert power to the hidden shrines, creating unmonitored electrical access points. The taxation clerk alters records to provide cult businesses favorable treatment while directing audits toward competitors. The Ecclesiarchy scribe removes certain incident reports from archives, making them effectively cease to exist in the official record. Each action is individually minor, unlikely to trigger investigation, but collectively, they create a shield of institutional corruption around the cult, protecting it through the compromised positions of members embedded throughout Imperial bureaucracy. And each action further commits the person performing it, building a documented trail of crimes that the cult could reveal if the member becomes unreliable. The cult also operates through charity and community service, which seems contradictory until you understand the strategy. In your district, there's a food distribution center that provides supplemental rations to families below subsistence thresholds. It's staffed by cult members and openly displays the ambiguous symbol that could be an Aquila variant. The food provided is real and desperately needed. The families helped are genuinely helped. But the operation serves multiple purposes. It builds community goodwill, making locals protective of the organization and resistant to official interference. It identifies desperate individuals who might be recruitment targets. It provides legitimate cover for cult members to gather regularly in a publicly visible location. And it creates a network of grateful recipients who owe the cult favors, who might look the other way if they notice something strange, who might provide alibis or false testimony if requested. The cult's relationship with local governance is managed through a combination of bribery, blackmail, and infiltration. The district overseer, who theoretically answers to planetary government, receives regular payments from cult-controlled businesses, officially as licensing fees and regulatory compliance costs, actually as bribes ensuring indifference to irregular activities. The overseer almost certainly knows something inappropriate is happening, but has been carefully insulated from specifics. He can accept money from the medical supply company without knowing about the off-book inventory. He can approve permits for the food distribution center without knowing its staff are heretics. If the cult is ever exposed, he can claim ignorance, and the compartmentalization makes that claim plausible. His incentive is to continue not asking questions, and the cult ensures that remains the most profitable option. You witness the cult's power demonstrated during a crisis that could have destroyed everything. A worker named Thalos, not a cult member, accidentally discovers one of the hidden shrines while doing infrastructure repair in the Underhive. He reports it to his supervisor, who happens to be a cultist. The supervisor thanks him for the report and says he'll handle it. Within 12 hours, multiple systems activate. The Arbite's interrogator in the cult's pocket files paperwork, reclassifying the area where the shrine exists as condemned territory, too structurally unstable for investigation. The tech priest arranges a minor power failure affecting the district records office, during which Thalos's report mysteriously disappears from the database. The ecclesiarchy scribe notes that Thalos has filed 3 previous reports that prove to be false alarms, establishing a pattern of unreliability. And Thalos himself receives a job offer from the Medici supply warehouse. Much better pay, much better conditions, contingent on immediate start date that requires him to relocate away from the district for training. Thalos takes the job. Why wouldn't he? He filed his report in good faith. It's not his responsibility to investigate personally, and this opportunity will dramatically improve his family's circumstances. He leaves, the shrine is quietly relocated, and the incident closes without any official attention. You're present at the gathering where this sequence of interventions is described by the shepherd, offered as a case study in operational security. The casual competence is chilling. A dozen different systems, personnel and resources coordinated seamlessly to erase a threat before it developed. This is the power the cult wields. Not armies or warships, but the ability to manipulate the Imperium's own structures to protect itself. The psychological effect of witnessing this power is profound. You realize the cult isn't a desperate underground organization hiding in shadows. It's a sophisticated network embedded in the very fabric of Imperial society, capable of altering records, influencing investigations, and eliminating threats through the Imperium's own mechanisms. This realization is both terrifying and oddly reassuring. Terrifying because you understand how deeply corrupted the institutions around you are. Reassuring because surely an organization this capable can protect you from consequences. You're not just part of a cult, you're part of a secret power structure that operates behind the Imperium's official facade. It makes you feel simultaneously tiny and significant, a small gear in a vast hidden machine. The longer you're involved, the more you see the Imperium itself as the facade, while the cult represents reality. The official structures are theater, pompous ceremonies, meaningless proclamations, rules everyone breaks whenever convenient. The real power operates in the spaces between official notice, in the networks of favor and obligation that actually make things happen. The cult isn't separate from Imperial society. It's a more honest expression of how Imperial society actually functions. Everyone is corrupt. Everyone has secrets. Everyone serves private interests while mouthing public pieties. The cult simply acknowledges this openly and builds systems around it, while the Imperium maintains hypocritical pretense of purity it never achieves. This perspective is exactly what the cult wants you to develop. It's a cognitive framework that normalizes heresy by suggesting everyone is equally guilty, that there's no meaningful difference between accepting small bribes and worshipping chaos gods. It's all just different points on the same spectrum of self-interest. This false equivalence is strategically valuable because it dissolves the moral boundaries that might otherwise restrain you. If everyone is corrupt, why shouldn't you be? If the system is rotten, why not exploit it? If the Imperium's values are hollow theater, Why not pursue authentic power through the entities that can actually deliver it? You're approaching the point where this logic feels natural rather than rationalized, where the cult's perspective is simply reality as you understand it, where your original values, loyalty to the Emperor, faith in imperial institutions, trust in humanity's essential goodness, seem naive and childish. You've seen behind the curtain. You know how the machine really works. And you've made your choices about which part of that machine to serve. You just don't realize yet that those choices weren't made freely, that your perspective has been shaped through systematic manipulation, and that the point you're approaching isn't enlightenment, but the final dissolution of whatever might have allowed you to turn back. That point is coming soon. And when you cross it, you won't even notice until it's years behind you, and the person who could have walked away has been dead for longer than you remember. Chapter 6. The Point of No Return. There's a moment when everything changes, a threshold you cross without realizing it until you're already on the other side. For some, it comes quickly. For others, it arrives slowly, like water rising around your ankles until suddenly you're drowning. But it always comes. The point of no return. You've been attending the gatherings for 7 months now. You know the hymns by heart. You recognize the faces in the candlelit chambers beneath the hab block. You've shared sacred wine from brass cups that feel too warm in your hands. You've whispered prayers to powers you don't fully understand but desperately want to believe in. The cult has become your family, your purpose, your identity, but you haven't truly committed. Not yet. Brother Callus approaches you after one of the midnight ceremonies. His face is gaunt, stretched tight over sharp cheekbones, and his eyes hold that fevered brightness you've seen in all the senior members. He places a hand on your shoulder, and you feel the weight of it like a brand. "The gods have spoken your name," he says. "They have chosen you for a sacred task." Your heart hammers in your chest. Chosen. That word again. The word that first drew you here, that kept you coming back. You've been waiting for this moment, craving it. Validation. Proof that you matter in a galaxy that treats human lives like ammunition to be expended. "What would you have me do?" you ask, and your voice sounds distant, like someone else is speaking. Brother Callus smiles. It doesn't reach his eyes. "There is a man, an overseer in the manufacture room where you work, Gaius Ventrell. He has been asking questions, making inquiries. He suspects something, though he doesn't know what. He's reported unusual absences among the workers to the local enforcers. 3 times now. The manufacture room, your workplace, your legitimate life. The thought of those 2 worlds colliding sends ice through your veins. You know Ventrell, a middle-aged man with grey at his temples and a perpetual frown. He's diligent, follows procedure, never takes bribes. In the vast corruption of the Hive City, he's almost unique in his stubborn honesty. You've never particularly liked him, but you've never wished him harm either. "What do you need me to do?" you hear yourself asking. His morning routine is predictable, Callus continues, pulling a folded data slate from his robes. He takes the same transit line every day. Carriage 42 on the 6:15 line from Tertius Station. He sits in the 3rd car, always on the left side. The route passes through the lower Warren, where the rails cross over the chemical recycling district. 17 kilometers of track through an area with no surveillance, no enforcers, and 1,000 places where accidents happen every day. The data slate is cool and smooth in your hands when he passes it to you. You unfold it, schematics, transit schedules, a grainy picked capture of Ventrell's face, and something else, a small packet sealed in waterproof plastic. You don't need to open it to know what's inside. Poison, probably. Or perhaps a micro-explosive, something small, something untraceable. This isn't... You start, but the words die in your throat. This isn't what? This isn't what you signed up for. But what exactly did you think you were signing up for? You've listened to sermons about the weakness of the Imperium, about the necessity of tearing down the old order, about blood and sacrifice and transformation. Did you think those were just metaphors? Just dramatic language to make you feel important? He's one man, Callus says softly, almost gently. One man standing between us and the liberation of 300 workers. 300 souls who could join us, who could know the truth, who could be freed from their chains. But Ventrell will call in the Arbites if he finds evidence. And then not just our congregation dies, but everyone you've come to love here. Sister Maren, who held you when you wept about your daughter. Old Tobias, who shared his last meal with you when you had nothing. Young Kira, who looks at you like you're someone worth respecting. The manipulation is so smooth you barely feel it. One man against hundreds. One life against the community that's become your entire world. It's almost mathematical, almost logical, almost righteous. The Emperor sanctions death every day, Callus continues. Millions die in his name, for his wars, in his factories. Ventrell himself has probably signed execution orders for workers who failed to meet quotas. What we're asking is no different, except we're honest about it. We're choosing consciously. We're taking power instead of having it wielded over us. You look down at the data slate again. Ventrell's face stares back at you, frozen in a moment of stern concentration. Does he have a family? You don't know. You've never asked. He's just been part of the background noise of your life, another cog in the machine of the Imperium. I'll do it, you say, and the words come out steady and calm despite the chaos in your chest. Callus's smile widens. The gods will remember this. You'll be blessed beyond measure. He embraces you, and you smell incense and sweat and something else, something sweetly rotten that you can't quite identify. Come, we have much to prepare. The act itself is simple, but the ritual surrounding it is what matters. What transforms murder into sacrifice? What transforms you from a follower into a true believer? They take you to a deeper chamber that night, one you haven't seen before. The entrance is hidden behind a false wall in the storage basement, accessible only through a passage so narrow you have to turn sideways to squeeze through. The air grows colder as you descend, and damper. Water drips somewhere in the darkness, a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. The chamber itself is small, barely 4 meters across. The walls are rough rockcrete, old construction from when the hive was first built, probably 10,000 years ago. But someone has decorated them. Symbols cover every surface, painted in what you hope is red dye but suspect might be something else. They hurt to look at directly. Your eyes slide off them, refusing to focus, and staring at them too long brings a pressure behind your forehead that pulses in time with the dripping water. There are 12 others waiting when you arrive. All of them wear masks, crude things made of scrap metal and leather, beaten into approximations of human faces but wrong, subtly distorted. Too many angles, eyes set too far apart, mouths that stretch too wide. One of them steps forward and hands you a similar mask. You put it on. The leather is warm and it smells of old sweat and fear. Kneel, a voice commands. You can't tell who spoke. The masks make everyone's voice sound hollow, echoing. You kneel on the cold stone floor. Your knees immediately begin to ache, pressing into the unforgiving surface. Someone begins to chant. The language is nothing you recognize. The syllables are harsh, guttural, catching in the throat like vomit. But the others join in, and soon the chamber fills with the sound, reverberating off the walls until it seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. You don't know the words, but your mouth moves anyway, mimicking the shapes, and somehow the sounds that emerge are correct. The chanting builds and builds. Your head throbs. The symbols on the walls seem to pulse with a dim phosphorescence. Though there's no light source you can identify, your vision swims. The cold of the floor seeps up through your knees, through your legs, into your core. You're shaking, though you're not sure if it's from cold or fear or something else entirely. Then hands are on you. Multiple hands, grabbing your arms, your shoulders, pressing you forward until your forehead touches the ground. The stone is slick with something, not water, something thicker. You try not to think about it. Do you offer yourself? A voice asks. the same hollow, masked voice. Yes, you whisper, louder. The gods are not deaf, but they demand conviction. Yes, you shout, and your voice cracks with the force of it. Do you offer your service, your devotion, your very soul to the powers that dwell beyond the veil? A moment of hesitation. Soul. That's different from service, from devotion. That's permanent. That's eternal. But everyone is waiting. The silence is enormous. And what even is a soul, really? An abstract concept, a religious metaphor. It's not real. Not like the community is real. Not like the acceptance you've found here is real. Yes, you say again. Then take this gift, the voice says, and prove yourself worthy. They place something in your hands, heavy, cold, metal. You lift your head and see what it is. A knife. Not crude, but not fine either. Industrial. The kind of utility blade that's everywhere in the hive, used for 1,000 purposes. Sharpened to a wicked edge. The handle is wrapped in wire for grip. The overseer dies by your hand, the voice intones. His blood waters the garden of our liberation. His death purchases the life of our congregation. This is not murder. This is sacrifice. This is holy work. Do you accept this burden? The knife is so heavy in your hands. Or maybe your hands have grown weak. You stare at it, at the way the dim phosphorescent light catches the edge of the blade. You imagine it entering flesh, ventral's flesh, the resistance of skin, the yielding of muscle, the scrape of bone, the blood. There will be so much blood. I accept, you hear yourself say. The chanting explodes into a crescendo. The hands release you. Someone laughs, high and wild. The chamber spins, or maybe you're spinning, you can't tell. The symbols on the walls are definitely glowing now, definitely moving, writhing like living things. You close your eyes, but you can still see them, burned into the backs of your eyelids. When you finally stumble out of the chamber hours later, dawn is breaking over the Hive City. You can see the first grey light filtering through the smog, turning the pollution into a sickly orange haze. The knife is hidden in your clothing, pressed against your ribs. The data slate is in your pocket, and something has changed inside you. Something fundamental. You can feel it, like a door closing in your chest, like a lock clicking shut. The next 4 days pass in a haze. You go to work. You operate your machine. You speak to your co-workers in monosyllables. Everything feels distant, muffled, like you're watching your life through thick glass. You see Ventrell twice. Once he walks past your station, barely glancing at you. Once you pass him in the corridor. He nods curtly. You nod back. Your hand is in your pocket, fingers brushing the handle of the knife. Not yet, not here. Too many witnesses, too much surveillance. You attend another gathering. Sister Marin asks if you're well. You look pale, she says. Tired. You tell her you're fine. She hugs you, and you feel nothing. Old Tobias shares his food again. You eat it mechanically, tasting nothing. Brother Callus watches you from across the room. When your eyes meet, he smiles and nods. Encouragement, support. You're doing the right thing. You're being brave. The morning comes, the morning you've chosen. It's the 22nd of the month, a date you'll never forget. You wake at 4:30, 2 hours before you need to. You haven't slept properly in days. You dress slowly, carefully. You check the knife 17 times, your hands shaking each time you touch it. You check the transit schedules. Ventrell will be on the 6:15 from Tertius Station. Carriage 42, third car, left side. You leave your HAB unit at 5:45. The corridors are already filling with the morning shift. Thousands of people flowing through the arteries of the hive toward their work, their duties, their pointless little lives. You join the flow. Just another worker. Just another nameless face in the mass of humanity. Tertius Station is exactly 23 minutes from your quarters. You've timed it. You arrive at 6:08. The platform is crowded, as it always is. The air reeks of unwashed bodies and recycled oxygen and ozone from the maglev rails. You position yourself near the third car's boarding point. Your heart is hammering so hard you're sure everyone can hear it. Your mouth is dry. Your hands are slick with sweat. The train arrives at 6:14, 1 minute early. Unusual but not unprecedented. The doors hiss open. People surge forward. You let yourself be carried with them. Just another body in the press. You board the third car. Your eyes scan the interior. There, left side, Ventrell, sitting exactly where the schedule said he would be, reading a data slate, his face set in that familiar frown of concentration. You move through the car. Not directly toward him. That would be suspicious. You take a seat 3 rows back, across the aisle. You can see the back of his head from here. Graying hair, cut short and neat. A small scar on the left side of his neck, just above his collar. You've never noticed it before. Shrapnel, probably. Everyone has scars in the Hive. The train lurches into motion. The familiar acceleration presses you back into your seat. The station slides away, replaced by the blur of the tunnel walls. You watch the stops tick by on the display above the doors. Tertius Station, Manufactorum West, Worker Housing Block 17. Each one brings you closer to the lower Warren, closer to the stretch of track with no surveillance, closer to the moment. Your hand is in your pocket. The knife's handle is warm now, heated by your palm. You rehearse it in your mind. Stand up, walk forward, casual, natural, stumble as the train sways, fall against him. The knife goes in under the ribs, angled up, just like Callus showed you. One thrust, deep, then you pull back, apologize, confused and horrified. Another worker helps him. Too late, the wound is mortal, internal bleeding. He'll be dead in minutes. You're just someone who accidentally fell against him. Tragic, unfortunate, blameless. The train enters the lower Warren. The lights inside the car flicker as the power grid shifts. Outside the windows, the tunnel gives way to open air. You can see the chemical recycling district below, a nightmare landscape of pipes and vats and toxic pools, glowing in unnatural colors. The smell infiltrates even the train car's recycled air. Sulfur, ammonia, things that burn your nose and throat. This is it. This is the stretch. 17 kilometers of track. You have maybe 12 minutes. You stand up. Your legs are shaking. You lock your knees, force yourself to move forward. 1 step, 2 steps. You're 3 meters from Ventrell now. He hasn't looked up. He's absorbed in his data slate, reading something about production quotas, management protocols, things that won't matter in a few minutes because he'll be dead. 2 meters. You can hear him breathing. Deep, steady breaths. He doesn't know. He has no idea his life is about to end. 1 meter. Your hand is on the knife. You're pulling it from your pocket, keeping it low, hidden by your body and the sway of the train. The train lurches. Perfect. You let yourself fall forward, your hand rising, the knife angling toward his ribs, toward the soft, vulnerable space between his bones, where the blade will slide in and find his heart. And then Ventrell turns. His eyes meet yours. Grey eyes, tired eyes, human eyes. And in that frozen instant, you see everything. You see the person. Not the obstacle, not the problem, not the sacrifice. The person. A man who wakes up every morning and goes to work and tries to do his job right in a universe that makes that almost impossible. A man who probably has a wife or a husband or children or friends. A man who feels pain and fear and hope just like you do. The knife is centimeters from his chest. His eyes go wide. His mouth opens. Time stretches, distorts, becomes syrup thick. And you thrust forward. The blade punches through fabric, through skin, through muscle. The resistance is nothing like you imagined, both easier and harder. There's a moment of tightness, and then the knife slides deep, and you feel the warmth of his blood spilling over your hand, and you hear the sound he makes, a wet gasp that's not quite a scream. You pull back. The knife comes free with a sound you'll hear in nightmares for the rest of your life. Ventrell slumps forward, his hands going to his chest, blood pumping between his fingers. His data slate clatters to the floor. His grey eyes find yours again, And this time they're not just surprised. They're betrayed, confused. Why? "Help!" someone screams. "Someone's been stabbed!" The car erupts in chaos. People surge backward, away from the blood, away from Ventrell, away from you. You stand frozen, the knife still in your hand, dripping red onto the floor. You're supposed to hide it. You're supposed to act shocked, but you can't move. You can't think. You can only watch as Ventrell slides from his seat onto the floor, his blood spreading in a pool that rocks and sloshes with the movement of the train. His lips move. He's trying to say something. You kneel beside him, and distantly, you realize this is insane. This is the exact opposite of what you should be doing, but you can't stop yourself. You lean close. "Why?" he whispers. And then blood bubbles from his mouth, and his eyes go glassy, and he's gone. Someone grabs you from behind. Strong hands. You don't resist. The knife falls from your fingers. You hear shouting. The train is slowing. Emergency stop. Arbites are coming. But none of that matters. Nothing matters except the widening pool of blood and the empty eyes and the single word. Why? You wanted to matter. You wanted to be chosen. You wanted to be special. And now you are. You're a murderer. The one thing you can never undo. The one act that defines you forever. The point of no return wasn't when you took the knife. It wasn't when you said the words in the chamber. It wasn't even when you joined the cult. It was this exact moment, this death, this blood. This is when you became something new, something that can never go back to what you were before. Brother Callus promised you would be blessed. And perhaps, in the eyes of whatever dark powers the cult truly serves, you have been. But standing here with blood on your hands and Ventrell's corpse at your feet, blessing feels indistinguishable from damnation.